This video offers highlights from a much longer conversation between astrologers Timothy Glenn and Laura Bruno. We focus on the period from March 23rd to June 11th, 2023, and discuss how can we unlock the power of Pluto in Aquarius.
A lot of people have lots of fear and trepidation when anything is shifting, and hear lots of things about Pluto moving into Aquarius, ooh, or Saturn moving into Pisces. Oh, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. They come up with all these things to be afraid of. But if we approach things with fear and trepidation, what are we putting out there and what are we going to generate? So yeah, let's look at the cool things that can happen here. Because if we're approaching this from a place of faith, and we know that this is a cool transit, that oh, this is going to be freaking awesome.
So what are some of the things that you are anticipating?
Number one, in fact, I have the little pyramid here again. We've been told in this old Capricornian way here that the power in the pyramid is up here at the capstone, way up at the top. Got a handful of entities who convince everybody that, yeah, they depend on that cap up there. You got to have that, because that's where the power is. But the power is down here. So we're going to be shifting from that top-down authoritarian structure that is the old Capricornian way that's been here for thousands of years. And we're going to be shifting into grassroots level co-creation down here, because this is where the real power is. Rose quartz crystals all over the place down there, right? So if we open our hearts and do that rose quartz energy approaching this is going to be really cool, because it's going to be grassroots level co-creation of a whole new system here. Aquarius wins this one.
Yeah.
So those Aquarian ideals, the universal family energy, because ultimately it's all the field. It's all one.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the whole social media thing, just this freedom of thought, freedom to speculate, freedom to think, speak, freedom of the press, etc. This is really going to come to the fore. And we're at a point that, yeah, people are kind of tired of Big Brother's propaganda machine.
Aquarius ruling technology. I know there's been a lot of concern, like, oh my God, we're going to see the complete AI revolution. It's going to take us over. It's going to destroy us. And, we're going to be fighting for our humanity. I don't know. I mean, that's up, right? It certainly is up, but the energies that we're seeing are really much more to do with liberation, especially in 2023. So I know Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for like 20 years. So some of this is going to shift, but in this early start of the transit, I think we're really finding a lot of fresh energies.
Yeah, and we, of course, have our own input. How are we going to approach it? Instead of constantly looking up to the top of the pyramid, it's like, well, who's going to be in charge? Well, grassroots, underground, right? The roots are underground. Okay, so it's all right, the underground is going to rise up. And it's a nice long process, so we don't have to panic. It's a big window of opportunity to get into working with these energies. Now, people are talking about, Pluto is ready to march into Aquarius, March 23rd. Okay, cool, that's great. But on May 1st, he's going to station retrograde.
Yeah.
And June 11th, already back in Capricorn again. So we've got this brief time to just get our toes wet. And if there are things that we see that we don't like, well, then we can determine we're not going to feed energy into that.
Yeah, I really feel like this is a blessing, because it's just this little window. I mean, it's not even a full 3 months, more like 2.5 months. So by June 11th, it's moving back into Capricorn. And that's just kind of like the perfect amount. You're in the swimming pool. You don't want to jump in, but somebody's getting ready to push you, and you just put your little toe in there and just kind of feel the waters and experiment, right? Aquarius is a very experimental sign. So it's not just the rebel, it's also coming up with innovations, coming up with new ways of dealing with things. And that can include, any potential problems that arise.
And with the people talking about doom and gloom, well, they are consciously choosing to feed into those probability lines.
Yeah.
So we're not going to recommend that.
No. No, if you look for that, you'll find it. And that's the thing, though. You can look at any time in history and bad things have always happened. So we were talking about this on the weekend when we were kind of riffing on what are we going to talk about in this call. But in my own natal chart, I've got that exact grand trine between Sun, Moon, and Pluto. So I'm kind of always in a Pluto transit myself. And the way that that ends up playing out in my life is, yeah, crazy bad stuff happens to me, but it always turns up to be the best thing ever. And so like my brain injury that I had in 1998, I mean, talk about complete destruction of my old way of life. But even in the moment, even in when I was like completely spaced out, there was this part of me that knew, oh, this had to happen. I was holding too tightly. I couldn't figure out how to make the shift that I knew I needed to make. And so along comes a brain injury that took it all away. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to have a brain injury when they have a Pluto transit, but just in my own life, just to share, that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. And I say that consistently because it opened so many pathways. It put me on my life path. It made everything so much deeper and more fulfilling, both for me and for the people that I help. So I like to share that because with Pluto, you never quite know what you're going to get, right? But if you really kind of dive into it and engage that energy, then you've got like rocket fuel for change.
Yeah, and if we're willing to let go of the old ideas and the old habits, as Proterian has said for a long time, if you base your future on your past, you're screwed. So if we're going to approach it with our old fear and trepidation, well, then we are going to generate it. But we've got an opportunity here to generate so much. It's so cool. And this is, again, a long process. This isn't like, okay, we have to have it all done by the end of March 2022, right. Because Pluto, again, is going to station direct in October, get to October 11th. So he's back in Capricorn, stationing direct. And on my birthday, 1 degree of Aquarius, January 21st, that's when Pluto re-enters Aquarius for the second time and is yet going to go retrograde back into Capricorn. Mm-hmm. And then fine. So it'll be 5 times going over that cusp.
Yeah.
So it's not an emergency.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to just make a comment here. I don't normally ask people for likes or comments or subscribes or anything like that. But in this case, I know Tim and I both had quite a few requests to do this live stream, and for a variety of reasons, mostly that I have like technological issues, sort of a comedy of errors, even getting this call to work out. We're not going to ever do a live stream, but if you put comments below with your questions, we will address those in future conversations, because we do plan to do this multiple times with that quintuple crossing over of that point. And so if you've got things that this call has brought up or that you want to know about, put it down below, and we will address those.
As the technologies come forth, one thing a lot of people are theorizing about, and here's some interesting speculations out there, but yes, technologies that have been suppressed, not only for energy, which is right here in the atmosphere, but also what about for rebuilding our energy fields, our own healing?
Yeah.
We've been stuck in this old paradigm that is part of what's going to be Plutoized here.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, boom, it's going to go. It's going to be taken down. And if we open up to our own infinite possibilities, Pluto coming into Aquarius can just bring forth an explosion, like a volcanic eruption of fantastic new knowledge, or old knowledge.
Very old.
And many times ancient. And if you look at God, look at the old stuff that's in Egypt and wherever, India, like the Bar caves or whatever. It's like you look at this stuff, it's like, who did that? How did they do that? I mean, they had technology that we can't even begin to touch right now. But that's the kind of stuff that can come out during this phase as we start to transition. And once we finally have Pluto fully established in Aquarius, which won't be until November 19th of 2024. So just breathe. But then it's like we're still at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, okay, what can we do for the next 2 decades?
Yeah.
This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah. That's my sense too. And in particular, the healing quality, because I mean, so much of my healing work that I've done with people as a medical intuitive for 20 years or whatever is helping them to release the old limitations, helping them to release those limiting beliefs. And when you've been injured or ill for a long period of time, it's really difficult to conceive of yourself healthy. And that's part of it, is like you start to think of yourself as disabled. And on a collective level, I think people have started to think of humanity as, oh, this is all we have. This is all that can happen. It's just, oh gosh, all this top-down stuff. And those are the kinds of beliefs that when you let that fall away, or when it gets ripped away, either way, it'll be gentler if you let it fall away. But if you don't, it'll get clobbered with Pluto here. But that's what allows for the healing. That's what allows for the new to come forth.
Yeah, it's that willingness for us to realize that there's a much bigger scale of operations going on right now. And spiritually, we are part of that. We're co-creating. And for us to understand with this transit, and especially being kicked off with Saturn in Pisces, this can be so much more mystical, spiritual. So it's a process.
It's a process, and it's helpful when you have external energies that are supportive of it, because the will is in conflict with itself. It's like, well, I want to heal, but I want to be right. I want to be right about my illness. I want to be right that this is a struggle and all of that. And so even when you want to move beyond, there's this other part that's like, And that's where Pluto comes in and kind of supersedes that will. And if it's on your life path, if it is actually intrinsic to who you are, it'll stay. It might have a different form, but it's not going to get obliterated, because that's inherent and intrinsic to who you are. But if it's something that you just kind of picked up along the way, maybe totally unconsciously, that's the stuff that Pluto destroys. It's like the things that needed to be destroyed anyway.
So there are lots of opportunities to learn something that most people haven't, and especially Americans, because for how many years have we heard, oh, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, no, never do. And we never learned how to have civil discussions about our differences and different views that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the grand scheme of idealism, virtually everybody wants the same cool stuff. We want peace. We want prosperity. We want the fun, the creativity. We want to do all this stuff. It's how do we get there that we start disagreeing. And of course, then there we have our inability to actually have civilized discussions about it.
And do you see that changing with Pluto and Aquarius?
That's going to help immensely.
Yeah, that's my sense too.
And to be open to understanding that there are endless perspectives on this. And usually when we look for something, and like in that, okay, how do we govern our affairs, et cetera here, usually the solution that's most workable at a time is not going to be out at either extreme.
Right.
It's going to be somewhere in the center.
So there's a lot of issues, obviously, with kind of a poisoned earth, right? Like all the toxic train derailments and exploding chemical factories and all of that. In my Pluto video, my earlier one, I was talking about the potential for new developments in cleaning up the earth, and even old ones like medicinal mushrooms can sop up a lot of radiation and toxins. I mean, there are some untapped things, but I did that video before all this stuff started. So I'm just curious if you have had that same sense of kind of the Aquarian connection, not just as the humanitarian sign, but also as the sign that does want to protect the earth, that does want to, heal and protect our planet. How do you see that playing out with Pluto there?
Well, with the explosion of technologies and knowledge that will be coming out, we could clean it up with the push of a button.
Yeah.
I'm not giving our power away. I'm not for giving Gaia's power away, as though my avatar has the ability to do that. But like, sure, kid. I am just opening up to these possibilities, not giving our power away to these external forces anymore, and understanding that it's all just energy patterning.
Mm-hmm.
And if we step into these ideas that can become manifested here, okay, yeah, it's no big deal to clean it up. Okay, now we have these microbes. Oh yeah, they can actually eat and consume these plastics or whatever else, and it goes right back into what Gaia wants in her biosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So approach it with faith, not with fear.
Yeah.
It shifts the whole thing. And really, when it comes right down to it, if at the very base we shift from fear to love, everything else will fall in place.
Yeah. And we were talking about this on the weekend too, that for some people that's too big of a jump, right? Like to go all the way from fear to love. It's like, oh, I can't get there. Well, I guess I'm stuck with fear. No, just pivot a little bit, right? Like give yourself the benefit of the doubt. So you don't have to jump all the way to love, but maybe instead of like living in the worst possible case scenario, take it over here a little bit where it's like, okay, well, maybe that's not true. Because if you can at least kind of start to chip away at some of that, it then loosens things up. And when you're more open to being able to see something else, you are more likely to see it if you're looking for it. And so I think that's important, because if you're looking only at this one location that is very fear-based, then it's going to be hard to shift to love. That's just going to be up here. But if you can give yourself the benefit of the doubt that maybe you don't know everything, or maybe there are these other things, then the universe will show you. Like you'll have examples, and then it's easier to make a shift that is based on faith and things that you haven't totally seen because you've gotten some glimmers of it.
And one step at a time. You don't need to do it all at once. And so when we have this little window from March 23rd to June 11th, while we actually have this phenomenon of Pluto in the early part of Aquarius, that gives us a time to look at things that we might be able to shift to one degree or another.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of going, oh, well, I didn't do the whole thing. Well, why not just acknowledge that you moved in the direction that you wanted to, and give yourself credit for what you did accomplish?
Yeah. Yeah. And also just realizing that this is such a fantastic opportunity to let stuff go. And we've all got something that we want to let go. I mean, somebody in the comments was saying, oh, I'm cleaning out my closet. I was like, great. Like, that's fantastic, because it's not just about clothes. It's about, the old restrictions on our identity. How do we present ourselves? So that can seem like a superficial thing to do, but it's actually, you're engaging that fresh energy. And my sense is whatever way you're engaging it, like take the low-hanging fruit. Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for a long time. And so if something's coming up as a really obvious thing and you don't mind shifting it, then it's almost like, okay, I've done my Pluto. Like I've done my change here. And a lot of times the transits will go more gently for you, because at least you're bringing that change energy in. Where people run into trouble is when they're like, I'm going to dig in my heels and I'm just going to resist this. And nope, not going to budge. Then Pluto's like, oh, here's a tsunami. Oh, you still are standing there? Oh, another one. Oh, you're still standing? Okay, another one. And, after like 3 years of that or something, you're usually like, oh God, okay. But it doesn't have to be that long, right? You can get the message on the whisper, right? You can get it in the beginning and make the change. And then you've got like you're surfing and you've got a tsunami behind you to make the change that you want to make.
Yeah, because Pluto having such a wide orbit here, it takes a long time to get around one time. So when Pluto comes to any tender part of our chart, he's going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't do a flyby.
No.
It's like, okay, God, it was a busy week. It was crazy. It was like, oh, that was this Mercury transit. Okay. Or the moon, with a matter of
Yeah.
hours. Okay, that was done. Okay, Pluto, he'll come up just within the orb of influence and he'll give you that whisper, give you that little nudge.
Yep.
And if you don't like that and you're just out there not aware of the processes here, you go, okay, well, whew, that's done. But then he comes direct again and he comes up even closer.
Yep.
And if you didn't take the nudge, he'll give you a shove.
Yep.
And then he'll go retrograde again, still in the order of influence. And then he's going to come up and he's going to come right onto that exact tender spot. And it's not the change that causes the pain, it's the resistance
Yep.
to the change.
Yep.
And if you're still resistant or in resistance, yeah, he's probably going to kick your ass. Yeah.
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 But Pluto is one of those ones where in retrospect you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, I needed that.
Yeah.
I mean, I go back to my brain injury again, and it was like, yeah, I was on an academic path. I knew it wasn't my path, but I didn't know how to get off of it, and sales wasn't my path either. And so, bring the wrecking ball. It ends up just making things happen, but they're the things that needed to happen.
Yeah. Like one of my favorite comparisons of the work of Pluto and Saturn is that unlike Saturn, Pluto does not do remodeling jobs. It's like urban renewal.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, take it down to bedrock level, build something completely different here.
Yeah.
And of course, there have been people who want to have Pluto dartboards and just Pluto tore down my slum, but Pluto then gets no credit for the beautiful office park that's sitting in the same spot.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're trying to keep this to about an hour. Any last few minutes of tips or things that you think that we should tell people before March 23rd or June 11th?
Well, be willing to shift your identity. If we've still got energy in us, and we all do, these are confessions, we've still got places in us where we're still identifying as the struggling little earthling, struggling little human. That's all we are. We are the infinite field. So bit by bit, start opening up to your own glory, because everybody is the field.
Yeah.
It's infinite possibilities. We are the field. We have infinite possibilities. So what do you want?
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. So lovely talking with you. I'm sure we'll do this again. And how do people find you?
Soulpurposereadings.com. That's
All right.
SOUL, soulpurposereadings.com.
Great. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up today, but thank you so much for doing this. And I hope this helps a lot of people. And again, if you guys have questions for us for round 2, then put them in the comments below. I don't respond to every single comment, but I do read them all. So put the questions in there and we will be back another time.
Yeah, thank you. This is fun. Yeah. I feel really, really energized by this.
Yeah, me too.